Hello. So, this is my second video, and the things I'm going to talk about first is my projects, and mostly the Sunzu village and the latrine. Second, I want to talk about my traveling along here in Rwanda and how that's been going. And third, I want to talk about zero waste in Rwanda. So first, my projects. Sunsu Village is a really interesting one, and what we're doing is we're currently building a latrine. Some of you have seen it on Facebook, so I won't go super in depth about it, but it's pretty much a composting latrine, and it's the first composting latrine in this village, and we've definitely had some challenges coming along this project so far. So some of the challenges that we've been having is that the people who are working with us, that are the locals, have an idea of what composting is, or they think they have an idea of what that is. And so we were saying, like, hey, we want to build this composting latrine. And this guy goes, great, let's do it. And then I asked him, okay, well, how are you going to divert it? And he was like, oh, divert it? How, like, why do you need to do that? And so we had a long conversation about that, and we finally came to the conclusion that we do have to divert it, but it was definitely a long process as far as trying to get that communication across. And then we worked with Cal Poly students in this appropriate technologies class, and we talked about how we're going to be able to take the solid waste and do as much like as little human contact as possible, and to also have it be somewhere where it didn't have to just be sitting outside and collecting over time. And so I wanted to make sure that when rainwater comes, it doesn't just flow into the river. So we worked with them for some solutions on that, and one of the solutions we came up with is, instead of the bin with a drawer at the bottom, like you typically see in some composting toilets, is that it was going to be this large 3-meter deep hole, and there's an access door. And so first, the solution was that people were going to go in, and then within these buckets, they're going to fill up another bucket and then take it outside of the access door and then take it somewhere else to wait for 6 months before we use it. And then over time, we talked with the Cal Poly students, and one of the students said, well, what about a slope? And how everything could then come to one side next to the access door, and then you can take things out and store it somewhere else before it is used 6 months later. And they're like, that's great. And so we actually went to the location where the construction is happening, and we talked to our friend John of Peace there, and he said, great, actually I was going to do that anyways. And we're like, oh, okay, cool. So I don't know if that was exactly what he was going to do, or if that was an idea later, but that was a really interesting communication difference. Also, we have started construction, and the construction has gone extremely fast. And then within that, we realized that there is a wall in the middle, and the engineer has concerns that wall is going to end up being a load-bearing wall, even though it's not supposed to be a load-bearing wall. So the material that was used to build that wall is apparently really bad material to use in humid environments, and it's going to be a very humid environment down there. So we are now in the middle of trying to figure out what the best solution for that is. Other things that are going on with that project is that there's a school nearby, and right now we're trying to figure out the relationship between the school and this library, because the library kind of became this shining star that the school had tried to be with another organization called Mothering Across Continents. And we're excited that we're working with them, but it's definitely interesting to hear about this whole backstory after we've been working on this project for the past month, and we had no idea that the school had such a dream to it, and that it had full intentions on being this vocational school, kind of like a charter school, doing more hands-on projects and things like that, where the library's kind of already done this kind of project-based learning and done kind of vocational school style of learning. So Yeah, I'm trying to think of ways right now as far as how, and talk with the community about how the library and the school can work together more, how there can be projects between the school, the library, and actually this Virunga Lodge, which is a really upper class lodge that's higher on the hill. And so things like this composting toilet could be a cool project, or maybe installing a solar panel at the school and having that be a project that's supported through the library and funded by Virunga Lodge or something like that. So there's a really interesting relationship that I think can come from this. And we're going up again on Sunday, so we'll hopefully be able to talk to the school and the library and Virunga Lodge to see how these ideas can kind of start coming together. The second thing I want to talk about is traveling. We just got back from Nyungwe Forest. It was beautiful, and we didn't go inside the forest. We stayed in an eco center nearby, and I got to talk to the owner of the eco center and give him some ideas on how to do some easy design methods. So he talked about doing a composting toilet, and I actually got to tell him how to do it. So he was going to do a bucket system, but he didn't know where the urine should go, even though they already have squatty potties in place. So I told him to divert the urine in the current squatty potty situation, and then just have the bucket to be able to be removed out the back, and to make sure that it doesn't have just a pile, so it doesn't go into the rivers. And this was all stuff he hadn't considered before, and it was really cool to bring that up to him and have him consider that. Also, he was talking about adding cushions to these pallet benches that he had, and so I suggested, like what we're doing in Sunsu, is having the women be able to make the cushions with the textiles they have, but these women in the village nearby don't have textiles, they have different materials. But there's a ton of tea plantations, so I asked him what kind of bags does the tea go in? Is it like those large rice bags, which he said yes, and they're waterproof. So I was like, why don't you just make these cushions out of these waterproof bags? And he's like, that's a great idea. So it's really cool to kind of help with that as far as coming up with creative, recyclable, and reused materials in the area. It's kind of what I was hoping to do all along in this time in Africa, was in this time in Rwanda specifically, like thinking about what do I have available and what can we use to make something cool out of it, to use the resources instead of trying to find something new and do something that you see everywhere. Coming up with a new solution is kind of the better way to do it. And the last thing is zero waste. I collected my waste for a week, and this was pretty much it. Added to this was a to-go container that was like a foil to-go container about this big. But yeah, this is my waste. It's floss and a lot of tea bag ends. The rest of my waste is recycled or composted. So that was pretty cool. Rwanda's really good about being zero waste. There's not a lot of plastic wrappings, and it's really easy that you just can buy your fruits and vegetables without having additional packaging. It's all very open at the market, so I've really enjoyed that. And that rice can come in paper bags, and it's just so much better to do it that way. So yeah, thank you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.